Kumiuchi is a practice and study that deepens on grappling. It's a very old fighting art which emphasizes its intention to take down the opponents to the ground. In one of the wealthiest art, in its action and exercises, it possesses great efficiency in the binomial body-mind development. In the origins of Kumiuchi can be considered as one of the most primitive arts studied in the school's curriculum. Some masters believe that the art emerged with the beginning of the human evolution, through that time when specific techniques were unknown and the only purpose was to grab the enemy. However, its practice as a war art came to seem later. As it was mentioned before, Kumiuchi techniques based on grappling were constantly evolving along the years. One of the strongest characteristics of Kumiuchi is aggressiveness. Kumiuchi to shorten distance and to utilize their own body as a weapon to defeat the enemy. Their name can be translated as kumi to hug, to hold, uchi to strike. In a very complex art, Kumiuchi techniques and immobilizations are studied with a lot of tenacity in foot, however, with a greater emphasis to grappling. Inside Taijutsu, Kumiuchi is the oldest form, originated to grappling, throws, locks and strangulations for concluding the combat as fast and effective as possible. Japan's geography had always played an important role in the development of the war techniques. A rough geography, barely 80% of the country's terrain is mountainous. That demonstrates that there was a greater tendency for the combat to end up thrown down to the ground, letting the nature become the weapon itself. In ancient Japan, when the cold season came, the warriors class note that the leather parts of the armor and tanto's withdrawal from its saya in cold weather had different reaction to its normal use. Because of the freezing, in this case the tanto was difficult to draw and the enemy could take advantage to attack. By then, those who contemplated this incident created the forms now known by our school as Soshuu, meaning the forthcoming of autumn. The first technique from this kata, this name ude nuki tanto gaeshi, taking its name from the way the tori takes rid of the uke's arm to then thrust the knife. This kata belongs to the group of ArukiDome, and other schools also name it Shinpo-dome. We must note that Kumiuchi origins are based on body-to-body confrontation. Small weapons used for Yoroi Kumiuchi became very useful. These weapons needed to be small in size. Yute, wakizashi, aikuchi, and tanto were the most common ones. For the warriors who did not wear armor and practiced Kumiuchi, used a staff named tambo. We have made a study of the stance used in a series of kata. But first, we are going to see the basic principles of the most important part of Kumiuchi. Without a proper structure, we would be defeated in a less than a blink of an eye. This stance has to absorb a great amount of impact to stay centered. It is why the hara must be lowered and prepared. Most of the terrain were irregular, and this is why the leg had to attach to the ground in a wider stance. Looking closer to our feet, if we were to leave the toe looking forward, we would see that our back foot would not have sufficient support to absorb any force coming from the front toward us. Thus changing it to 90 degrees angle will ensure us to a better structure. The column or spine of our back must be straight and not to bend for a proper transmission of the energy that comes from the ground. The most common mistakes seen are the poor use of the pelvis pronation. Thus, the stance would lack support from the lower back region, losing this way all the transmitted energy from the lower base at the lumbar region of the body. The structure of the spine must be straight relative to the hip bone's axis. The region where the scapula is located is especially the deltoid muscle in between the cervical area, will also play an important role. The shoulder in this case must be tucked back in tension to connect to the spine, where the right hand guards the tanto and the left arm is prepared to block the opponent's attack. The head also plays a very important part of the kumui. It must follow the line of the spine as well, having thus a body connected as a whole. Through this example, Tori exerts his hara in a downward direction against the uke to oppress his action, not letting him to use the tanto, blocking the initial structure of uke and balancing the stance by forcing the front knee to a hyperextension. By watching it over, we will see that the hara projects the energy from the ground upward through the ankles, knee, hip, spine, shoulders, elbow, and finally the wrist. This force eventually, well applied with the right structure, will make desirable effects as to block the opponent's hand. The basic biomechanics studies of bones plays a very important part when transmitting force to the end of the limb. For example, if we were to pay more attention to the elbow's structure, the arm levers, flex and rotates, having different effects in its angulation. The limitation of bones causes locking of the movement. Using these natural locks with the right alineation, we can transfer the hara's energy wherever we want. A good example would be a gardener's hose when carrying water. If it is not the case, all the energy's transmission will lose effect and the techniques won't have the right outcome, flexing and rotating involuntarily. In this moment, while Tori steps back, pulling aside his right arm to get rid of Uke's grappling, making possible the release of the hand, Tori will use his upper body, mainly pushing forward with the head to press Uke's left arm, leaving openings through the joints of the yoroi to fairly thrust the weapons to the main arteries for a quick, bloody death, as well as to control him from attacking.